everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Esther Ali. I am a small business owner who shares videos about life and her business. For my returning subscribers, I thank you for always coming back and always leaving me a comment. I appreciate you guys. I always take my time to read all your comments. Okay, so now let's get into today's topic, which is possible bread problems with their solutions. There are different issues being encountered by people when trying to make bread, whether it's a commercial bread or just a simple homemade bread for their family. Don't worry, that's why I'm here. So today's video is inspired by phone calls I got during the week concerning different problems that people were having in their bread making. Some of those problems are things that you can actually work on. They are normal, they are valid, so don't panic when you have such issues, especially when you're still new in the business. And that's why I made this video, so that I'll be able to share more light on some of those problems. Please stick around to the end of the video. I'm sure you'll be able to get solutions to that problem you've been having. So I hear a lot of people asking different questions. Why does my bread collapse after baking? What causes dry bread? Why is there a hole in my bread? Why does my bread have too many crumbs when I slice it open? Why does my bread peel by the side when I try to depan it? That's when you try to bring it out from the pan. Why is my bread not rising? Why is my bread not fluffy? My bread is always spoiling after 3 days. It doesn't have a long shelf life, and a whole lot of questions. That's why I made this video, to answer some of these questions. Truth is, this problem occurs due to some of the actions that we've been taking that we've not been doing properly. Bread making is calculative. Using the right measurements of recipes and timing is key to having a perfect bread. Also, some ingredients don't need air entering into them. Ingredients like your yeast and some other ingredients. For yeast, most times when we finish baking, some people just leave the yeast, especially when you still have some left over in the pack. People just leave it open, and till when next they want to bake again, then they'll pick it up and use. Yeast doesn't need air. It has to be sealed. It has to be airtight at all times. Because if air gets into the yeast, by the time you use it to make bread, you'll find out that your bread is not rising properly, or that it's taking so long to rise. Why will I bake a bread and it takes me like up to 4 hours, 6 hours for it to come up, for it to proof properly? That's because the yeast you used is either expired or it has air in it. So yeast is supposed to be airtight. Please take notes. Anytime you finish using your yeast and it is still remaining, look for a container to seal it up. If you don't have a container, you can even use something like this normal nylon. Just tie it and ensure that the mouth is tied properly. Or you look for something to just seal up that mouth. Or you fold the mouth, like what I do most times. I usually fold that mouth. Especially when I buy this yeast that is in sachet. I fold it, that mouth I open with scissors. I fold it and I put it in a nylon bag. Just a small transparent nylon bag, till when I'm ready, when I want to use it again next time. And it's not only yeast, there are so many other ingredients too that don't need air. Right? That don't need air. If not, for the other ones, you're fine. Things like your preservative, your improver, all those ones, you're fine. Even if air goes into them, when you use them, they're still okay. So it depends on what you're using for your recipe. Please take notes. There are some actions that could lead to bread defects. Sorry, not default. Bread defects, which are when you undercut your dough. Yes, a lot of you might ask, how does this affect the bread? Let me tell you, if the size of your pan is too large for the size of dough you're cutting, you will end up with a bread that is too light, or a sinking bread, a bread that will sink inside the pan, right? Another one is incorrect fermentation time, the time you leave for your proofing. When you don't allow your dough to rise properly, is a problem. Inconsistent recipe. Today you use this recipe, tomorrow maybe you forgot the recipe you used the last time. You end up putting too much yeast or too much ingredients in this particular one. Incorrect level of mixing. Uneven oven temperature. You have an oven that doesn't distribute a uniform level of heat around the oven. and you use it to bake your bread, be sure that you have a bread that will be deformed, inconsistent pan size, using ordinary water instead of ice block water. I keep telling you guys, don't use ordinary water to make bread. Another thing, not rubbing butter in your pan before using it, or rubbing butter on your dough before you drop it into the pan. You should rub on the dough or in the pan. Don't do both of them. Don't go and rub in the pan and also rub on the dough, right? Because you have too much butter and that will be dripping when you're about to put it into the oven. And as it's dripping, don't forget that butter that is dripping is entering inside your oven, and it will cause another problem in your oven. So always try to either put on the dough and don't put in the pan, or you put in the pan and don't put on the dough. So you choose one, don't do both of them. That will be too much butter. And then another thing you can also do is you can mix your butter and groundnut oil together if you don't want to use too much butter inside your pan. I know butter is expensive now, even groundnut oil is expensive now here in Nigeria. So another thing you can do is when you melt a little butter and also add groundnut oil to that melted butter, so you have enough to rub on all your pan. I'm talking to those that are doing commercial bread making, not for those that are baking in the house. The one in the house, you can choose to do it anyhow you want to do it. But this lecture today is for those that are into the commercial bread making. Now, for some of these problems, what do you do? That's a valid question. Make sure you check your equipment. Check the mixer, the oven, your pan, your molder. If you have one, if you have molder, your cutter, your slicer, ensure they are not the ones sabotaging you, because that's another thing. You see some of those equipments, they might just be malfunctioning and you will not know. You'll be wondering, why is my bread not coming out well? Why is this one like this? Why is this one bending? Why is this one sinking? Why is this one like this? Sometimes it could be the machine you're using. That's why you should always check the settings of your machine. Ensure that they are working properly. They are doing what they are supposed to do. Provide regular maintenance and clean them up properly after every use. Because of mold growing on them, or microbes that you might not see with your eyes that could lead to your bread spoiling quickly when it comes in contact with your bread. When those machines, especially machines that you use your machine in this production and you've not cleaned it properly, and the next time you're producing again, you use the same machine, because that's what happens in most commercial bakeries. That's what happens. They hardly clean their machines. And then they are complaining, no, my bread is not lasting, my bread is always spoiling. There are microbes, microorganisms everywhere that could be responsible for that your bread spoiling. So that every equipment you use, you clean it up properly before your next production. Scrutinize your ingredients. Make sure you're using the right measurements as stipulated by the manufacturer. Check the back of the ingredients. You know that pack. Most times they write it there. They write what quantity of ingredients you use. Like for example, your yeast. When you check the pack of that your yeast container, you see that they will tell you use so and so for half bag of flour, or use so and so for 1 bag of this. Most of all those ingredients, they have already stipulated what quantity you should use, right? So ensure you're using the right quantity, because when you use too much of the quantity or less of it, it might affect the nature of your bread, the quality of your bread. It might not come out properly. So please take notes. And also ensure that the ingredient you're using is not expired. You see, I'm always emphasizing that. Ensure it is not expired. That's very important. Now look through your baking processes. How are you baking this bread? Are you mixing properly? For how long is your mixing time? Is your water cold enough? That's another thing. This is why I recommend ice chilled water. Did your dough mix properly? Did it mix properly? Did it stretch? Right? Why I'm saying did it stretch is because sometimes you mix and mix and mix, and that bread has not finished, that dough has not mixed properly. You mold it and put inside the pan. Right? That's another problem. That's another place where you could be getting it wrong. Your mixing process. You see that mixing part? That's like one of the most important parts in bread making. You have to mix properly. Now, how do you know that you've mixed properly? Another way to know that you have mixed properly is, you know, when your dough has mixed to an extent, you pinch a side of it out, right? You put it in your hand. You try and stretch it. you try and stretch it. So when you stretch it to an extent, you see that it's light. It is light. So the more you stretch it, you see it's stretchy. As it's following you, it's stretchy like gum, like chewing gum. You know the way when you chew a gum, you keep chewing. You see how your chewing gum is. So that's another way you know if you have mixed properly. Then when you raise it up, you see it's transparent. That when you stretch it out, right? You stretch it out and you put your hand at the back of that dough. You can actually see your hand. You can look through your hand from the back. It's light. That's another way you know that you have mixed properly. Some people don't know this thing. So when they just mix to an extent. You just mix for 10 minutes and say it's okay. Ideally, when you're making an half bag quantity of flour, well, it depends on the mixer you're using. For my mixer, I remember I told you guys, my mixer is not a super large mixer. As small as that mixer is, I mix for up to 20 to 25 minutes. That's when I know that I've mixed properly. Why some people just go and mix for 5 minutes? But like I said, it depends on your machine. If you're the type using this macadam's, macadam's mixer. Macadam's mixer is one of the best mixer out there. It's the best macadam, but it's very expensive. A half bag of macadam's mixer will cost you nothing less than, as at the last time I know that, as at 3 years ago, the half bag of macadam's mixer was going for 2.5 million. Half bag. But now, this is 2022. Macadam's mixer, half bag of macadam's mixer is almost 5 million now. 4 to 5 million now. It's that expensive. Not talk of their oven, right? If you're using a macadam's mixer, trust me, macadam mixer is automated. It's a South African machine, product rather. Is made in South Africa. It's a South African machine. So it mixes for you can set the time you want it to mix your dough. You put your recipe and everything. You can set it for it can mix for up to 5 minutes. 5 minutes, as little as 5 minutes is fine. When you bring it out, it's perfect. Right? Unlike this Chinese mixer that we usually use. Chinese mixer is another good mixer. Don't be deceived because it's Chinese. You say, chinko. It's good. Although you saw those mixers that are not branded, but they are automatic, they are modern mixers. They are very good as well. They do the job. That's what I'm using. They do the job. Right? So, all those ones, China mixers, they usually mix for 20 to 25 minutes to get a perfect mix. So these are some of the techniques